Hey everyone, Temporal here. And for this session, we are taking a look at the news. We mostly treat this as an Overwatch channel, but we do cover some other things. And the thing that we are seeing today is this is Blizzard related. We'll take a look, and we see Blizzard removes most green skin references in World of Warcraft. This wouldn't necessarily be interesting by itself, except that, as you saw in the thumbnail here, this is one of a number of cleanups that they've done to World of Warcraft over the last few months since they got into legal trouble, got bad PR attention, all those things. So I'll give my thoughts on this, on whether it helps, whether it, is like, yes, this won't be used as further evidence against them in a legal case because they've gotten rid of it, or if this just calls attention to it by removing it, or if this, properly helps them not take bad PR at a time when what they're really worried about from the lawsuit is bad PR. We'll have our thoughts of what we think that is. You guys can definitely drop your thoughts up in chat there as well. But let's take a look at this. Let's keep in mind that they're removing this stuff from World of Warcraft, which is itself a relatively old game. I want to say 2004 was when that came out. And really, World of Warcraft was sort of the culmination of Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3. And it's like, okay, it's pulling from those. So this is sort of a setting that we're talking about, a medieval type fantasy setting between different races. That's kind of the premise that we get into there. So it doesn't make sense to sanitize it to 2021 standards when it's trying to talk about a medieval time period, a fake medieval time period, but a medieval time period. It's based on, even when it was written, what set it up, what made that sort of, not cinematic universe, but game universe, was still back in the 90s and early 2000s. Doesn't make sense to do that here. So let's get into it. And Nardstorm, to answer your question, greenskin here is referencing the orcs. I expect what we're going to see is that's referencing the orcs, and it's we see here the phrase often used as a slur by humans in Azeroth in reference to orcs has largely been erased from the game with a few exceptions. So it's a racist way to refer to people, really species I think you get into, but it's being used as a proxy for race here. But remember, the humans are at war with the orcs, and the orcs are at war with the humans for most of Warcraft 1, 2, 3, what sets up World of Warcraft there. So, we'll get into it. Blizzard is continuing to update older World of Warcraft content to be less problematic, this time targeting the phrase greenskins, as well as a number of dialogue changes that include the removal of additional developer references and toned down sexual remarks. So we've seen that in Overwatch, of course. Jesse McCree is McCree, who the announcers are now calling Cowboy in Overwatch League, but they've announced, Activision Blizzard has said, we're going to rename this character. They haven't done it yet. They probably should have just done that all in one move if they were going to do it, but whatever. They haven't actually renamed that character yet, but they are now getting rid of what used to be Easter eggs of, let's put a developer name here, let's put a real world person here, let's put a developer here, when it turns out that anchors things to real people, and real people have flaws, do things, can end up being a bad spot on your game. So understandable why they're doing that part, considering the instance. Tone down sexual remarks. I mean, the game had a ESRB rating, as we can see here. This is a New Worlds advertisement that's there, but I'm sure it had an ESRB rating, though it probably said online experience is not rated. But that doesn't mean that the quests and stuff can't be rated. Whatever, we'll continue. The term greenskins is often used by human NPCs or members of the Alliance in reference to the game's orcs. While most instances of the phrase have been removed or altered, there is still one NPC named Captain Greenskin, as well as 2 legendary items that use the phrase. Okay. Blizzard learned why money only has dead people on it. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty much right. And even they're not safe. Dead people, that is. It appears the phrase is being removed to avoid racist connotations directed towards the game's orcs, but as pointed out by Wowhead, it could also be to avoid any potential conflicts with Game Workshop's Warhammer series, whose orc and goblin races are often referred to as greenskins. Okay, I think that's sort of like I don't know. I mean, if it's a different developers, okay, so we're talking about the Warhammer series. They refer to the goblins and orc races as greenskins. That's sort of like the concept of in fantasy lore, elves have pointy ears. Like that's, I think that's just a shared space thing. They're probably not doing that to remove potential confusion with another series. There, like that's how that works. We have a concept that gnomes are short, that orcs are green, that like we have these concepts in fantasy. It's sort of all in that Tolkien type world. That seems unlikely. Most developer references have been removed as well, in addition to renaming of a city named the former level lead designer Jesse McCree. Oh, Jesse McCree was all over Blizzard's franchises, apparently. Did he have a city named after him in World of Warcraft? Okay. As well as a character in that. Huh. In Overwatch. And all the necessary dialogue changes to go along with it. Blizzard has also removed an Easter egg from the Ochidon dungeon, a boss in the dungeon, Levixus the Soul Caller, would shout out phrases in Demonic that, when translated by Warlock players, revealed the names of various developers who worked on the Burning Crusade expansion. Okay, so concept is, oh, it's a cool Easter egg. You worked on the game. You get to be immortalized in there. That's a cool little benefit, cool thing. And they've decided, maybe that's not a good idea after the whole Jesse McCree fiasco. That makes sense, though probably feels lame if you're one of the developers who worked on that, especially because Blizzard was a different place back then. A somewhat iconic NPC, Finkel Einhorn, has also undergone a major change. The NPC's original name was an amalgamation of characters Ray Finkel and Lois Einhorn from the film Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, a film which has been criticized for being transphobic. Have I even seen Ace Ventura: Pet Detective? Yeah, I don't remember. Sorry. The NPC's new name is Pip Quickwit, and items using the character's name have also been changed. The change is present in a Hearthstone card involving the character as well. Okay, so now we're going across multiple IPs. We've had McCree in Overwatch and in a city in World of Warcraft. We have this character in World of Warcraft who also makes their way into Hearthstone. What about Heroes of the Storm? I know, Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm are really, existing franchises or using existing franchises. In addition to the changes above, numerous instances of dialogue involving lack of consent or sexual innuendo have been updated. Can we get an example? Because we've kind of moved our definitions a bit over time of what qualifies consent or lack of it, and what qualifies. And why are we getting rid of sexual innuendo? Like, this, we've sort of updated our definitions as a society of what they mean, whether wherever people fall on the fence or whether we should or shouldn't have. That's mostly what society has done. But like, sexual innuendo that's still a lot of what flirting is. So like, why would we get rid? Okay, whatever. We'll move on. Okay. In the last round of changes to have come or will be patched to Blizzard's long-running MMO, the public test run build of the upcoming patch 9.15 has revealed the renaming of old achievements, the removal of crude emotes, and more will be coming to WoW in the weeks ahead once the patch goes live, along with the whole host of player-requested changes. Okay, so they're telling us these were not player-requested. They're trying to get ahead of either they're worried about these being referenced in the lawsuit to show that it's a terrible workplace because they do things like this, like include writing sexual innuendo lines, which, you do that in art sometimes. You do that in the film industry too. That's not weird. Yeah. Or to get ahead of PR stuff, which, they're afraid of a Twitter mob coming after them, that sort of thing. They want the negative press to go away. But they're highlighting these were not player requested changes by putting this in here, whether they mean to be or not. The changes come in the wake of multiple lawsuits and investigations accusing Activision Blizzard of sexual harassment and discrimination against women. Numerous Blizzard veterans, including former Blizzard president J. Allen Barak, departed the company following the allegations. Blizzard recently outlined its thought process for the changes in its blog post, stating that the goofy jokes and occasional mature innuendos are part of WoW and probably will always be, but the developers want to remain mindful of whether certain elements are welcoming to all players. Well, That seems contradictory. I want to see the blog post here. I don't know if we'll go through the whole thing. Just show me the blog post, guys. That's not helpful. Don't link your own work. Blog post. Okay. That seems contradictory. So goofy jokes and innuendos are part of WoW and always will be. Remain mindful of whether certain elements are welcoming to all players. Like, that seems like a have your cake and eat it too. I think you're going to have to pick one there. Like, this is one of those things where you have to pick, you have to split your audience, you have to accept that, hey, you can't do stuff that is like not remotely offensive to anyone, because then it's not interesting to anyone either. Maybe it sucks, but like, the cultures have fragmented a little bit. You have to sort of accept that, are you going to do these things to make it interesting, or are you not going to do these things to keep it safe? Well, safe is also pretty stale, and you're probably not going to sell many video games. But let's take a look at that blog post. We could also open up. Oh, I mentioned more things here. So here's the crude emotes, removal of crude emotes. I think renaming of old achievements is less interesting, but we'll take a quick look. Okay, so it's a long list. Can we actually get our list of emotes? Okay. Kick, stink, shake, moan have been removed completely. Drool, cough, burp, fart, whistle, spit, and moon can no longer be directed at other players. Isn't this a game that like has PvP? Like, spitting on your opponents, spitting on their corpse? Like, this is supposed to be a war game of sorts, isn't it? Like, am I off base here? Those seem like things, like, I could get how maybe within your faction those could be an issue, but that seems like kind of the intended way you demonize your opponents in war. It's why I sort of look at this and go, yeah, this isn't good. This isn't good. I'm not going to claim that this is good or moral behavior, but this is what happens when you're at war. You demonize the other side. We've seen this countless times throughout history, and this is referencing you have to demonize them because it lowers people's inhibition. It makes people more willing to do the act that is taking someone else's life. It dehumanizes it. It makes it like they're just, nameless, faceless enemy soldier. They're dehumanized, and now it's easier to overcome your morals and eliminate them in war. Like, that's something that nations, factions, whatever do. So this seems like it should be in the same territory to me. But I'm interested in what your guys' thoughts are. Definitely throw them up there. I'm up for a little bit of debate on this topic. And then what sort of achievements did we get removed? Not appropriate. One formerly titled, My Sack is Gigantic. My Storage is Gigantic. So getting rid of the pun there. This was named after, so there was a large bag achievement named after Harris Hilton, or clearly a ripoff of Paris Hilton, that they've renamed because they don't want to base real world people. Sure. Bros before ho-ho-hos. Okay, if they're worried about, I see it. Okay, so that's what those are. Let's take a quick look at this blog.
Now, you ready to hear?
Let's take a quick look at this blog. Okay. Over the last few weeks, artists and writers across the WoW team have updated a small number of old quests, art, assets, names, and dialogue that we identified as outdated and inconsistent with our values as a team. These updates are a relatively small part of a comprehensive company-wide effort to improve the WoW team and Blizzard as a whole, but they're important to us as developers. In August, internal channels where the WoW team could share feedback on content that doesn't represent who we are as a team today. But like, your fictitious world that was built in the 90s and early 2000s is not supposed to represent who you are as a team. It's a fictitious world that you're building that's actually supposed to represent a different version of like a medieval world. Like, that statement is stupid. It would be like, hey, we set up this futuristic sci-fi that's a warning of dangers of the future because that's what hard sci-fi is, but we want it to reflect our values today. Well, Well, no, sort of the part of hard sci-fi when you're dealing with futuristic stuff like that is maybe you're showing some of the dangers to your values today, but like you're going to show things that are happening. They're going to do things like, oh, do cloning, for example, and maybe that's against your values as a company, your values as a movie studio, your values as a writer, but that's like kind of the point. It's not supposed to be like, ah, yes, this is some good thing. You're using a different setting of the future, or here you're using a different setting of a medieval magical fantasy type past, which that's a setting that we understand. We see it in Tolkien style stuff. Okay. During this time, so it was, what do people in the company not like? So this was, we sent something out on Slack or on whatever to people in the company and said, list things that you find offensive. That seems like a terrible idea. A great deal of feedback from players on basically every aspect of the game. Okay, well, that's good. You do want player feedback. You're not always going to give them exactly what they say they want, but you do want player feedback. Mm-hmm. Very few total changes overall. Believe the changes are worthwhile. Meant to evolve over time. Okay. And every day, new players from every walk of life and every corner of the world experience our in-game content for the very first time. As a team, we want the world they see to stand as an expression of our talents and principles. But like, it's goth fantasy. It's Tolkien fantasy. It's like that's it's medieval. That's not okay. That's weird. I guess like it's moved forward. I don't know it. I haven't played World of Warcraft expansion since Wrath of the Lich King, I don't think. So I don't know what it's like now. Maybe the world has evolved that they're in through the next 6 expansions or whatever, 5 expansions, whatever they're on. I don't necessarily know. I'm just sort of looking at this going, hey, it's news. It's related to Blizzard. It's probably interesting to us because it affects the Overwatch world. And for those of you that are clicking into this because it's World of Warcraft, I apologize. I don't know your game well enough anymore. Um, but like maybe it's evolved over time and now it's like, oh, this society that they're in is supposed to be just like ours. But that seems unlikely because I suspect there's a lot more violence and acceptable violence in their society than there is in 2021 in most parts of the world. Okay. Okay, goofy jokes in the okay, so here's the line that got quoted. Goofy jokes and occasional mature innuendos are part of WoW. They probably always will be. Still, we want to remain mindful of whether certain elements of that world are welcoming to all players. In short, we want our jokes to be inclusive and not punch down. Aren't orcs fictitious? Are there real orcs? Where? Where are they? Okay. Occasionally, when determining whether to adjust, there can be circumstances that further complicate our decision making. For example, some of the art that populates it is reused throughout the game. That's fine. Players to express themselves through their characters, so we don't intend to exchange existing player looks or cosmetics. Instead, we want to ensure that we're offering a wide range, but they don't pick them. We had this discussion before, guys. Like, I know what this is. This is in reference probably to the video that was going around for a while of someone said, but there aren't things that look like real people, or maybe it was real women that they could pick. Like, when do we get the real classes? And it was something like that. And it's the video that resurfaced that I think got Alan Brack in some trouble there. It got some of their director level employees in trouble. It wasn't a good look, certainly, but like the thing is, people don't like it was like an argument of things need to look real, but like Tauren don't look like real people. Night elves don't look like real people. Like this is a fantasy, different, weird setting. Gnomes don't look like real people. That it was just kind of weird, but that is probably what this is a reference to. Again, I welcome debate on that topic, guys. If you think I'm wildly off base there, chat is there. If you want to jump in now, you can super chat. Otherwise, I'll catch up to your chat in just a couple minutes. Uh-huh. But anyways, they're saying that they're going to offer new appearance options. My suspicion is that they're going to offer more appearance options to try to make people look less attractive, and my suspicion is that those aren't going to get picked because is what tends to happen when you're like, okay, let's do this. A couple people will pick them as jokes, but they mostly don't get picked. It's why orcs, not orcs, it's why Horde got vastly more popular as a faction in World of Warcraft. The faction imbalance originally was pretty heavily Alliance because Alliance was prettier than Horde until Blood Elves got added. Once Blood Elves got added, people picked the pretty characters because that's what people tend to do when they're role playing, when they're playing a video game. And the Horde has been the bigger faction ever since Blood Elves got added in the live game, and that's never swapped back. Someone can fact check me on that, but that is my understanding. And people pick pretty characters to represent themselves. Like that's what they do. Anyway, tangent. That sounds to me like what they're doing though. Improvements in creation of the Incubus demon. Glyphable options for warlocks, fine. Okay, that doesn't matter. Okay, so let's go over here. We'll jump. Let's actually catch up on chat first, and then we'll check out comments here. So, catching up on chat. What is Greenskin? We did that. Please stop talking to me thing. There we go. That's the ad trying to run. Okay, cool. So Blizzard learned why money. You're right, 10 people. At this point, it looks like they're going. Okay, this is Val. At this point, it looks like they're doing to be woke rather than focus on making good games. I mean, at this point, I don't know if they're specifically doing it to do that, though that's probably a reasonable assumption. They're probably deciding that that is going to do the best job of avoiding bad PR and maybe give the lawsuit less things to go after. I don't think that's going to work, is the problem. The lawsuit doesn't need those things to go after, and those really are not going to sway a jury very heavily. Like, oh, these things are in your video game. Like, that's not what the jury needs. It sounds like there are plenty of other things to influence the jury with that happened in the real world, or have at least been claimed to have happened in the real world. We'll know more when we see the actual case there, though we probably won't. It'll probably be settled, but who knows. Yeah, it sounds like there's plenty there already. I don't think like, oh, there's a reference to a sexual innuendo joke in your game, fictional characters, is really going to be like, this is what did it, this is what pushed them over the line and increased how much you had to pay by 20%, 50%, that sort of thing. Or this was the difference between they find you guilty, not guilty, based on a preponderance of evidence standard, because we're dealing with civil stuff there. Well, sort of civil stuff. It's the state going after them, but civil evidence level requirements. That seems incredibly unlikely. So it's probably more in the PR move, but like the PR move, this is like a we don't want to offend Twitter type level PR move, and you can't do that. Like you can't do it because people can always find something to get offended over. You just move the line. Like if this is the line for I'm going to get offended if anything goes over this line, and you go, well, that's safe because we're over here. I can't find anything to get offended over. Let me just move my line over here. If you have the tolerance of what is offensive drop faster than you drop how offensive things are, like you get less and less offensive things in your game, in your society, whatever, like the irony is you sort of create a condition where people become more like, if the tolerance to something drops faster than the thing is dropping, the people who have this tolerance now think that they're in a worse situation or things are worse than they ever have been, when like, no, actually, if you look at this, like it's been getting better. It's been getting, there's less things to be upset over, that sort of thing. But whatever. My point is, I don't really think you can win this battle like that from a PR front. Okay. You think goblins are the most problematic race, to be honest? I mean, trolls are clearly a Jamaican stereotype. Nordstrom says, this whole scandal feels like it has become very ideological, which makes thoughtful decisions and opinions nearly impossible. The same is true for other scandals in general. Yeah, you've got some truth there. How dare they add a farting emote? Well, no, they're removing it. They had it originally, now they're removing it. Or at least they're removing the ability to direct it at other players. Nordstrom says, just ban all sexual attraction globally. Problem solved. There you go, Nordstrom. You solved it. Procreation might be an issue at that point, but you solved it. James Daly says, I bet they will get rid of old armor. that was a chainmail bikini on female characters too. I could see that. Blizzard aren't against clothing. Half the WoW expansions aren't against cloning. Got it. Half the WoW expansions are clones of the previous one. Ouch. Ouch. Good shot. Good shot. Hey, Sulak. They could have just made the changes without the self-congratulatory virtue signaling. I think you'd have pissed off a different group if you did that. There's a group of people, and I think it's reasonable that there's a group of people that get upset when you make patch changes and you go change things and you don't say that you changed them. And I would say I'm generally in that camp for video games too. Like, if you go change stuff, tell us what you changed. Could you imagine if they just were like, McCree's going to do 5 more damage now? Now his roll is going to take him 20% further. Now is this, it's like, why are we just now finding this? And Nintendo gets backlash for that actually when they do their balance changes. It's like, we dropped a new patch. What did the patch do? You guys will figure it out. Like, I'm probably in that camp of no, if you made changes, be public about the changes. Yeah. I don't know that this is necessarily self-congratulation. Or if it is, I don't know that the alternative is better. Nordstrom says context doesn't matter. That's the new rule in society. Doesn't matter if it's a fictitious representation. Doesn't matter if you say X is bad. You still said X. I hear you. Don't write anything down that you don't want read back to you in court is a phrase Blizzard employees have never heard before. I mean, it's not that simple anymore, though. Like, it maybe that used to make sense, but it's not that simple in a world where things are always on. I mean, I'm streaming. I'm conscious of what's going on here in terms of, hey, I'm being recorded, but everyone is out and about acting in a world where everyone has a recording device that can record video in their pocket. And, you know, if you're at a workplace, you're at a building, you're at a company, there's probably cameras going on. You're in a grocery store, there's cameras going on. There is so much more recording of the world at all times and the spoken language than there ever was before. There's so much more record of, oh, this is a private conversation when you're texting someone and no, it's really not type thing. So I don't know that that's the standard anymore. James Daly says, I like it in articles about a couple that met on somewhere like Second Life. They always show the real couple next to their Second Life avatars. The avatars are so much better looking. Yep, that would be in reference to what we are talking about with the, hey, people started picking Horde once Blood Elves got introduced. They are turning niche nerd culture into a consumable for everyone, Coke soda. I don't really think World of Warcraft stuck as niche nerd culture. Like, it might have originally sort of been that, but it took off wildly, made MMOs a genre. Like, that could have been true of some of the MMOs before World of Warcraft, but I don't think World of Warcraft gets to qualify as niche nerd culture. Lots and lots and lots of people played World of Warcraft, even people who you would not think of as remotely nerdy, though they might not admit that unless you catch them in a moment, or at least back in the day for World of Warcraft. Now, I mean, everyone plays video games, so no one cares. It's no secret that everyone plays video games. But yeah, I don't really think that one sticks. Nordstrom says game studios need to start putting the opinion disclaimer in their games that movie studios put before their movies. Before the old ones? Yeah, yeah. James Daly says offensive things are more interesting than inoffensive things. Correct. Correct. James Daly says goblins in WoW are short, big-nosed evil creatures that love money. Yikes. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah. What comments were under the Blizzard post? Blizzard forums are always good for a laugh. I suspect they disabled them. Oh, 693 comments. Okay. We can read some comments. Brace yourselves, they're coming. Okay. Uh, let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. Fine. Please stop this. Like, getting rid of the NPCs of real people who were a problem is one thing, but the game is rated T. We all live in a world with much worse stuff than this. That's true. I just hope there's a limit to this. Are you going to get rid of violence altogether because in real life violence is bad? No. I mean, at least American news media has been very comfortable showing violence in the past, so I would expect that that's not going there, because that argument got used. But anyways, where does it end? You need to actually draw a line at some point and leave the rest of the game alone, but they don't want to draw the line. They're going to keep, going, okay, because the line is being drawn by what is going to never get us in trouble, never get anyone to be offended, never get anyone mad at us, and that line is always moving. And that's not going to work because that makes uninteresting art becomes the problem. But when you're a shareholder and when you're responsive to shareholders, you're going to be risk averse. The problem is risk causes reward. Like, there is a risk reward relation payoff there. Why not give players the option to hide specific emotes instead of deleting them altogether? Sure. That's one solution. Regardless of whether people agree or not, it's super respectable that they decided to officially address us on this. Thanks, Blizzard. That got some approval. Okay. To the dev team, thank you so much for posting this. While I do not claim to speak to anyone about myself, I very much appreciate this post. I do support your efforts. Okay, so there's some support for it there. They addressed it after people made a big stink about it. Oh, did they? Was there some big stink about this? Again, I don't know the history here. Was in the WoW world, Reddit, Twitterverse, forums, was there a big stink about it? Okay. I don't necessarily agree with this. It could have been a kick in the butt to take a step back and start listening more, and maybe they are, but at some point it's just too ridiculous. We aren't 5-year-olds. Let's be honest, in terms of online games, WoW skews to 35-year-olds more than 25, certainly not 15. Is there... yeah, but like the world that 35-year-olds grew up in is very different than the world 25-year-olds grew up in. And the world 25-year-olds grew up in is probably more similar to the world 15-year-olds grew up in at this point. That might not be fair. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is he's saying more towards 35-year-olds, which is different than these two. That's fair. My concern would be that this isn't, like, the world that they're catering to isn't this. It's more like it's this to young 20s. And not all 15-year-olds to young 20-year-olds, but we'll see. Okay. Please consider adding more revealing male armor pieces, by the way. Sure, go for it. Okay. Listen, I get you're okay with getting crumbs from this corporation that has money to make lawsuits go away by throwing $18 million at it. I get it, I really do. However, please leave hobbies because they don't really matter for a variety of reasons or no reason at all. And instead of realizing that and being a decent human being, you decide to defend a corporation that has no intention of actually changing it. Okay, that's the reply. Now we're getting into replies to replies. That's going to be too much to follow. Okay, that's fine. Let's jump back over here to this original post. We'll look at the comments here, and then we'll catch up on chat one more time. Actually, this is 15 comments. Okay. Okay, yeah, like this is going to fix the game. We need more new and good content for the game. Game is boring. Oh, we've heard that before. Not releasing content fast enough. Not releasing new heroes, new... Oh, I'm sorry. Not releasing new classes, new raids. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Nobody mentioned this to Game Workshop. He's trying to protect his other hobby, or she is trying to protect her other hobby. Papa Rocks. Probably a he, but we don't know that. This is the society we are now in it. This is only the beginning of the end for Blizzard. They will never be the same. This much is true. And the sooner people realize that, the better. Blizzard is not going to be releasing your, oh yes, every single Blizzard game is going to be an 8 or a 9 out of 10 anymore. Squaresoft, Square Enix, is not going to be releasing your, oh, every single game is a 8 or a 9 out of 10 anymore. Like some of the old companies that people used to look to as being the good companies are not going to be them anymore. And the sooner people go, wait, who are the new good companies? Like, is it Capcom? Hey, they're releasing Monster Hunter. They're releasing other things. That's working pretty well. Is it Atlas? Hey, they're doing this. They're doing this. They're doing this. That's pretty well. Like, they're putting up the hits or the 8 out of 10 9 out of 10 games by real reviewers, not by game journalist reviewers, because those are not very good. Look for the new ones, because like don't get trapped in this, well, they made good games when I was in high school or middle school or a young adult or whatever, and therefore they must still make good games. Like that's don't fall into that trap. I'm still hoping Overwatch 2 is going to be great. You can tell Real doesn't necessarily think so. For those of you who don't understand what I'm talking about, you should check out the discussion that I had with Real on this channel just a couple days ago. It was quite interesting. We got into the tank balance, tank design philosophy, and how there actually was room to add more tanks to the game without creating a lot of broken synergies. It was quite interesting. He also had some very controversial takes over how he divided those tanks and such, but you guys should go check that out. Anyway, I'm continuing reading this comment. All of the measures being taken at the company will bring it up to be with what the powers that be have decided is right or wrong in today's world. Will no doubt destroy what remains of the company. Yeah. Okay. Oh no, the past. Again, that's sort of the like, yeah, this is referencing a different time. Okay, go back 20 years. There were problems 20 years ago. There were problems 20 years ago. There were problems. I mean, I can talk to that time, but there were problems further back than that. Like, let's not too much romanticize the past, because there are things that have gotten better and things that have gotten worse as time has gone forward. For example, if we go back a couple generations, quality of life is much better now. We have access to much better medical care. We have access to much better appliances for reasonable rates. It's nice to, pay $30 for a microwave instead of 9,000, similar for a dishwasher, that sort of thing. But hey, okay. Uh-huh. Okay, nothing too interesting there. Let's continue with our chat catch up, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. If you guys are enjoying it, please do drop a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't. We're touching a little bit in dangerous territory here, so it's possible that this one will get demonetized. We'll see. But I do appreciate those likes, those shares if you feel that's appropriate, and we will continue through the chat here. Their core was niche nerd culture, which the majority being video game tourists. They're trying to appeal to the tourists. So that might be true now. That was not true when World of Warcraft was originally released. When World of Warcraft was originally released, not enough video games were released each year, each month to do that. The way that people consume content now, where they have a never-ending hunger for new content, like let's eat Pac-Man style, let's just keep eating this content, more content, more content, clear raids in a week, that sort of thing. Move on, Overwatch is now boring. Give me Apex. Apex is now boring. Give me Fortnite. The way that people cleared Monster Hunter. Give me the next thing. Release new content. Like the way that works now is not the way that people consumed video games back when World of Warcraft released. And video game tourism wasn't really a thing back then. Like I'm not saying some people didn't play lots of different video games, but like there weren't enough video games. I mean, there were, but like there weren't enough video games in enough genres to just be like, I'm gonna constantly do this. You played your games for a while. I'd say World of Warcraft was sort of a beginning of that sort of being possible, sort of, because it was like here's a video game that never ends, that you can keep playing forever, that really never ends, because the challenge becomes beating raids, doing other things. Collecting things with some level of permanence, but stuff gets added, that sort of thing. Like maybe we started to go there after that came out, but when it came out, that wasn't really a thing, video game tourism. It wasn't let's hop to this game, 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 like not in the same way. Hey, Mantis Frost. World of Peacecraft. There we go. That might work. Yeah, I know, James. I'm choosing not to I'm choosing not to go into it, but yes, the incubus thing is referring to a male version of the sexy female demon that warlocks can summon. There will be equal opportunity sexiness, but do you continue from there? I mean, that that seems kind of binary. Uh, and if you get into some of the stuff surrounding that, are they really the same creature or different creatures? Because you do have versions of of takes that will treat those as the same creature, and they will produce the organs that are necessary to deal with the lust of whatever creature they're interacting with. But I'm not going to go further than that. That's we're treading heavily into demonetization territory there. Okay, and it's not so much the monetization; it also gets the video suppressed. When a video can't be monetized, it also the algorithm goes, nope, we're not going to share it out. We're not going to let this distribute to as many people. Mm-hmm. Blizzard is just starving everything. Yep. Nordstrom says, my nephew is 10 years younger than me, and my sister, his mom, is 11 years older than me. Her childhood and mine were way more similar than mine and his. The world is accelerating rapidly. Yes, the world is accelerating rapidly. Game Workshop drama, or Game Workshop has had, I've used that things like that too many times already in this video. Adult fun times drama too about female space marines. Got it. Okay. Semitic says, I never really developed my thoughts on tanks as much as Realth. I just had main tanks, able to take a little more punishment and more difficult to remove from an angle, help set up eliminations, like with slam, pull, Winston blocking, healing. While off tanks can't take as much punishment, while having a tool that does a mix of peeling, removing someone from an angle, taking advantage of an angle, bubble hook, Sigma, everything. Yeah, no, I think that's a fair way to think about them, Semitic. I think that is actually mostly a more useful way to think about them. What I was interested in with the discussion with Realth was really in the, hey, what does this get us? I like it when someone can come up with a different way to frame things, a way to break the frame, a different way to think it, change it, that sort of thing, because it lets you see past some of your own biases, skip past some stuff, think, okay, well, should I be thinking about double off tank differently? Should I be thinking about poke comps differently? Where does it bring us? And it didn't bring us to some like, well, now we have some new giant fantastic strategy of this totally changes how I think about poke, and that opens up some new path, but it did take us to an interesting design place, which is where he was trying to go with it. From like, what can we do? How could we design new off tanks specifically? Do we need new main tanks? That sort of thing. And that was interesting. Select says, back in the old days, it was only a few games per genre, and you were stuck with your hardware. I agree. Few toward genres. That's true. You wish you could filter to watch only demonetized videos. There you go. Okay. Oh, James Daly asked, does Temporal just do videos about Blizzard news, or does he also offer Overwatch coaching? And how could someone sign up for his coaching if it was available? Well, that is an excellent question, James Daly. I do news videos. Sometimes they're related to Overwatch. Sometimes they're related to Blizzard. Sometimes they're related to other things. We did stuff about the Xenoblade Chronicles. We've done some other things here. But what we mostly do is Overwatch stuff on this channel, and if you were looking to get coaching in Overwatch, if you were looking to become better at Overwatch, like, hey, there's this contenders coach guy, Temporal, he could coach me. Coaching is a service that he offers. We've got a library of hundreds and hundreds of reviews we've done for people on this channel. You could join his Discord in the description below this video, see what rates look like currently for coaching, see if we have any sort of special events going on, join in with some of our groups that are now doing some six stacking, things like that, learning how to play the game in a more organized way. It's a lot more fun for them, even if they're not like a full strict scrim team like that. Yeah, lots of cool stuff like that. Join the Discord in the description below. AMC accepting crypto. Yeah, we'll cover other news stories too. If it's interesting, we'll cover it. Welcome to the stream. This guy lives and breathes coaching. Does Temporal have a Patreon too? Someday Temporal will have a Patreon or some competitor to Patreon. One of the two. Okay. That's going to do it for now. I'm glad you guys enjoyed. I'm also glad you made me shill my own content there. And I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Temporal out.